All right. Hold on. I gotta mic check myself to make sure that
You don't mic wreck yourself?
check my yes. Yeah, I think that sounds pretty good, man. This is the same tune.
Yeah.
You're sticking with this, ain't you?
I think I might, yeah.
Yeah, this is groovy. This is I'm loving it.
Ready?
You really got to make like a vocal breakdown in this, man. You got to
Something
sing a
like-
chorus for this podcast.
I think maybe more what we need is you're listening to the Snapcast podcast.
That's perfectly timed there too. Jeez, man.
Welcome
we
back.
definitely do. Yeah, welcome back. Episode 6.
Wow. It's almost a real thing now.
I know it.
We've quadrupled our subscribers or more.
Yeah, thank you guys. That's really cool. We really appreciate you guys going on, subscribing to us, and at least pretending like you care what we think and we say. We appreciate it.
I mean, that's what I do.
You do it every week with me, don't you, Brad? I gotta pretend I like hearing this guy's voice.
This guy's back again. You come into my house. Man.
Dude, did I tell you I passed like 20 snow-covered permanents on the way up here, man? Instant activation.
So what you're telling me is you're now a father, because that was totally a dad joke. That's the most subtle way to slip in. I'm a dad now.
It's been snowing pretty hard here today up in Maine, man. The roads are absolute shit, and but we still do these things. We still make it out here just for you guys. This is fun for us, man. We really enjoy delivering this stuff to you. So I hope you enjoy what we have going on today. We're gonna talk today about selling Magic cards. So we got a lot to cover with that. A lot of suggestions, maybe some things to think about, some questions to bounce back and forth, and just basically talk about all facets of that.
And I think it gives us a good opportunity to define who we are as a podcast and what we're going for week to week, and hopefully so that as a listener, you know what you're going to get and what to look forward to. One of the things, before we start that topic, what did you think about the tournaments we watched this weekend?
Jeez, dude, those team tournaments always confuse me.
Yeah.
I'll get in the I'll get in the modern mode, and I'm watching modern, and suddenly it's like, all right, now we're switching to standard. I'm like, whoa, I didn't think people used that in modern. That's right, we're not watching modern anymore.
Ah, damn it! They switched tables. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But I think they were pretty cool, man. We saw some pretty cool decks. Heliod making a big appearance in a lot of places.
Another deck that we talked about last week, the Dimir Inverter deck, was all over the place.
I think it was vicious. Simic ramp. Now, this is where I get confused. Did we see this in modern, or did we see it in modern and standard? What did we?
I think standard and pioneer for sure.
Yeah, like that seems to be all over the place now, man. Simic has got some crazy colors. Or just crazy cards in that color. Like, it's been one of those color sets that I've said for a while, like, it's had some vicious cards in it. When you think about Simic colors, like, think about Trigon Predator, or, of course, like, Coiling Oracle or whatnot. Like, just
I wouldn't call Coiling Oracle vicious, but
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, high value. Yeah. Like, both of those cards are really high value, man. And I think it's getting to the crux point now where they're printing so many good cards in those colors that it's really we're really starting to see more play from Simic decks.
It's interesting. I listened to one of the other many podcasts that I listen to, the Masters of Modern podcast, and they do top 10s, and they talked about a top 10 Simic list, and it was atrocious. Like, they had such a hard time. This was about a year ago. And you think about all of the fantastic Simic cards that have been printed since. You talk about Oko and Growth Spiral, and obviously Nis is a mono green card, but sees all this play in Simic decks. The Krasis.
Yeah, Hydroid Krasis.
all printed in the last year and a half or so.
Yeah.
What is the other color that everybody bemoans, gets no love, is underpowered, Wizards doesn't care about?
White.
We did not talk about this before the cast.
Nope.
But when we get to snap this shit up, I get a white card.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But, yeah, man. So one of the big questions that we were talking about, we wanted to throw it out there to you guys, you know, to kind of start things off, to get you thinking about kind of where we're going with this, is why do you collect Magic cards? Like, why do you have them? What type of player or Magic collector are you? You know, do you collect to play the game? Do you collect to invest in the game? You know, are you a hybrid? Do you kind of do both? You know,
Yeah. That's probably where most of us fall in. Most of us probably come to Magic not initially as a collector, but as somebody that wants to play the game, then learns that, hey, these cards have value.
Like, geez, I didn't waste my money buying this stuff. Or sometimes you do, you know. It's kind of how it happens. But yeah, I mean, if you're just a casual, or whether you're a casual or competitive player, you may or may not be concerned necessarily about what cards are selling for, because you're typically collecting cards just to, you know, to use them, to play them. If you're a modern collector, you're collecting modern staples or legacy staples, you might just hold on to them and get a play set of things when they're cheap, because, you know, your whole goal is to buy low and to just hold on to them. Like, you know, you think you're going to play them, or, you know, you want to play them. You maybe just want to have the option to play them. That's kind of where I would fall into as a player, I think. Or, you know, I'm kind of like the hybrid where.
Yeah. I think most Magic players are. Magic players want a game. They want to game the system. They want value. They understand that these cards cost money, that there's going to be a better time to buy them, that a lot of Magic players feel safe investing in a deck in a non-rotating format because they believe that at a later date they can get some of that value out. Now, if you go and buy Monopoly at Toys R Us, doesn't exist anymore. KB Toys, they don't exist anymore either.
Walmart's kicking them all out of there, man.
So you go and buy
Kmart, actually, nope, that doesn't exist anymore.
Man, you know, you can't play Monopoly for 2 or 3 years and then turn around and sell it for 80% of its value. It's going in your yard sale for $1, and you'll be lucky if somebody will take it away.
With very few exceptions. Like, I think there are some collectible versions out there that are pretty friggin' nasty, but then
like
again,
everything.
Good luck selling them. Got to find the right buyer.
So I think most players do have this sense of, I want to play the game and have the value added bonus. So most of us fall into the hybrid category. There are some people, and I'm the type of person that just likes to collect things. You know, I've got books behind us that I've read, maybe some I've read multiple times. What value do they have after I've read them multiple times? I'm not going to go back to my reference library and look up page 362 of the Elf Queen of Shannara to get some data.
But what did she say to the Elf King?
It's just that collecting those things, I enjoy it. I also think that when you collect something, it says something about you. So with Magic cards, I'm sort of the foil junkie type, where I like the shinies. I like the rare arts, the rare printings, that sort of thing. So I'm a collector probably as much as I'm a player. Even at a recent F&M, I think I said to some of the people that I was sitting with, I like hanging out with my friends. I like collecting the cards, moving the cards around, you know, monetarily buying, selling, that sort of thing. Playing the game sometimes is frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
It's not as easy.
I could never tell with you.
They still haven't bought me the Salt Shaker playmat that I so deeply deserve. But, you know, I say, oh man, I get so frustrated playing the game that maybe I'm not even getting as much enjoyment out of the act of playing the game as I do everything else that surrounds it, including this podcast.
Podcast, trading, seeing your card values go up. Like it feels, oh, it kind of feels good. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean to go off of that, I kind of have a unique style with that. I think. Well, maybe it's not unique. I actually, I know it's not. There's a few people out there that do this. You kind of don't ever want to get caught paying too much for a card. You know what I mean? So, like, I will often buy cards, even if I know that I don't run a deck that even plays them. But I know, hey, look, I've seen a few decks run this card, and it seems to be pretty good. This could have some traction later. Oh, it's only 75 cents? Well, let me just pick that up then. Because, there's a chance that it could go higher than that, but there's, not much chance it's going to go much lower.
Right. The bulk rate for Magic Rares is 10 cents.
Yeah.
So if you look at a card and you think this card could go from 50 cents to $5, that would be great. If it goes from 50 cents to 10 cents, you lost 40 cents a copy.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're not really out much. It's like the penny stocks we were talking about last
Exactly.
week.
One of the things that I like, there's another cast. Again, I like to shout out to people that I respect that do this kind of thing. Cartel aristocrats. Those guys will tell you, if you're struggling to make your car payment or your mortgage payment, maybe you shouldn't be investing in Magic cards. And I think that's really honest and wise. If I think about 40 cents, I'm an impulse buyer. You buy 50 copies of something, 40 cents is still going to add up.
Oh, yeah. Well, also, you got to think of like with any good that you buy, you have to think of the liquidity of it. You know what I mean? Which, buzzword right there. Yeah. Liquidity basically just, it refers to how quickly you can turn any given asset to cash. You know what I mean? So like, a check is pretty liquid. You know what I mean? As long as it's not forged or faked or something. Like
it's not sketchy.
It's an asset if you think about it that way, and it's very easily turned into cash. Cash is also very liquid. You can easily turn that into cash. A car, on the other hand, it may not be as liquid, meaning there's a lot more to do to sell a car, to get rid of it. Not only do you have to, list it either on a website or if you find somebody that wants to buy it, but then you got to haggle with them. You got to switch over the title. You got to
right. So if you have a car and you want a foil Elishnorn Judge promo written in Phyrexian, it's going to be really challenging unless the same person that wants your car has that Elishnorn. You've got to find somebody else to take that car off your hand. The process for doing so is very difficult just to get the cash to buy the card you want. So yeah, that's fantastic. And one of the things that we have to think about when we think about this from an investment standpoint is, how do you turn over cards? How do you take that card and get that liquid actual money capital either to reinvest in cards or to do things, like pay your electric bill?
Absolutely, man. And we should talk about that. In the meantime, though, let us know what kind of player you are in the comments. Are you or what kind of collector you are? Are you a straight player? Are you a straight investor? Or are you kind of a mix of the both? Let us know.
One of the things that just popped into my head: if you're a limited player, that's a totally different ballgame. You may not care about owning cards because the way you enjoy playing the game is to crack those packs and build a deck right there. And so you might turn those cards over to your friends that play Standard. Your friends that play Standard might turn their cards over to people that play Modern for cards that rotate. So just thinking that the different formats in which we play the game may also reflect how we look at things financially, because somebody that wants to play Legacy or Modern probably has a fuller mindset of the value of their cards.
For sure. Yeah, I wonder if that type of person would fall into like the casual or competitive player if you're playing like limited, where you don't necessarily care what the card prices are. You're just like, I'm going to pay $3 for this booster pack no matter what. Like, yeah, whatever I get. Like, if I end up cracking more value, awesome. Like, if not, whatever. Like,
Right. The value is playing the game.
Right. Yeah. So let us know, man. In the meantime, we can talk about some different ways to, basically of selling Magic cards. Like, when to sell, how to sell, and just kind of cover some things about that.
Absolutely. Now, each of these topics could probably and may in the future be a whole podcast.
Yeah, man. We're just scratching the surface right now.
Yeah. This is look at this as an overview. A lot of you, and I recognize that if you're invested enough in the game to be listening to a Magic podcast, you're a pretty entrenched player.
I would guess most of our listeners are probably pretty entrenched, like much like you were saying, the hybrid style. They enjoy playing the game and really like to make a profit out of it.
And so there's going to be things that we're going to say that you're like, yeah, I know this, I've done this, but there's going to be something for hopefully each of you that you haven't considered before.
Oh, for sure. This was, a lot of the stuff that I had, just planned on even throwing up for discussion is just things that most of them I had learned way later than I would think. It's just one of those things where when I started, I wish I knew this, or like I wish I knew, these little tricks when selling cards, or like these little must-dos when selling them. So
I keep looking over at Mike. I'm deferring to him because he has the outline that we worked out before this episode.
He just likes checking me out. Don't lie, Brad.
I hate it when you leave, but I love to watch you walk away.
But yeah, so selling. When to sell? When do you think you should sell a card, man?
There's a couple of times that I think about selling and not just selling, but sort of putting a card in my trade binder. One is when it doesn't have that much personal value to me anymore. The other is when I think it's either at its peak value, or I think that if I had that liquidity, I could get something else with more growth potential.
That's a good way to think about it. I used to struggle with that so much, man. Like I would always, as that player that I didn't ever want to overpay for a card. I also didn't want to sell a card too early and then need it, because I'm like, now I'm going to have to buy it back for more than, than I sold it for. So, I roll by a couple of guidelines, like when selling cards. Especially, it's like I was talking about, I'm like right in the middle. I like to not be denied the option to play any deck that I would like, which can get expensive at times. But, I kind of use that as one of my criteria as to when to sell. So a lot of times you'll hear Brad and I just spec on cards, and just say, hey, this might be good. Brad will go pick up 8 to 12 of them or something like that. And I might too, I've been known to pick up 15 to 20 copies of a card before, because I'm like, there's just no way it's going to ever be lower than this, But
so that's when to pick up, but
yeah,
when to sell.
When to sell would be, if you have that mentality like I do, where you don't ever want to overpay, or you don't ever want to be stuck needing or wanting a card, I would say a good thing to consider, like one first step to start considering selling your cards, is, do I have more than a play set of a card?
Ooh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a really good first start. Like you're never going to need more than that, likely. You know what I mean? It's very rare you'll find yourself in a position.
You want to be really exorbitant, you can say, I'm going to keep 4 for constructed formats and 1 for Commander.
Exactly. Like, so do you have more than a play set plus 1 of a card? Do I have more than I would ever need of this? Might be a better way to put it. And if the answer to that is yes, that's the first step. Like at that point, I feel better then at considering selling the card, because this is what I do now. I still hold on to a play set. I still hold on to 4 to 5 of the card, and then I just sell the rest. That way I'm never caught with my pants down in the Magic, in the Magic term of it, right? Like you might have sold, maybe the card went up slightly after you sold it, but you didn't really get taken through the ringer because you still have stock in the card. You know what I mean? You actually still have it. So, that's like step one is always what I ask myself is, do I have more than a play set of this card? That's always when a card hits my trade binder. It's like when I have more than 4, every time I bring my trade binder to the shop, every card that's in there, I have at least a play set of, like sitting back at home. So like, so you know that, funny story. If any of you ever see me at a shop or something, you see my trade binder, you got to know, like, all right, dude, he's got more than a play set he's sitting on of these. So
right. So if I look in your binder and I see 8 Thoughtseizes,
I have 12 Thoughtseizes.
and that was a great spec. Clearly, I mean, the Pioneer format really has rewarded you on saying, man, Thoughtseize is too powerful of a card for it to be valued this low.
Yeah. That was at $10, man. I was like, there's no way I'm getting rid of them at this. Like, just too good. Like, before they reprinted it in the first Theros, it was like an $80 card. Like, that card was stupid. So I'm like, wait a minute. This $80 card is now $10? I'll wait. I'll wait on getting rid of these. But, another facet of it, too, is, what I always ask myself. If I have more than a playset of it, I'm like, how much has this gone up since I bought it? You know what I mean? Like, and with me, I can't always say, like, what that point is. Yeah. But it's like the Supreme Court.
You know it when you see it.
Yes. I was just going there. Like the Supreme Court said once, I can't define pornography. I just know it when I see it. Like, and that's exactly what it is. Like, I just know it when I see it. Like,
that's where you were going to go.
Exactly. Pornography, Supreme Court stuff. Yeah. I mean, that's what we do. That's what we do, man. But you feel it. Like, for example, one of the things I'll talk about today is a card that, I spent 50 cents on and bought shit tons of them, and they're now worth $35. So it's like, it's a no-brainer for me to be like, yep, keep your playset, sell all the rest of them. Like, it's got $34.50 free per sale. Like, depending on how much you sell them for, but.
Making me look like an amateur.
I get lucky sometimes. I'm just using that as an extreme example. Like,
that, no,
it was clear. I just did that when we were up here just gaming last weekend.
Yeah.
And I saw the price of that card, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I'm selling all of these. I went right on eBay. I was right here in your living room and like took a picture of the cards that I had in my trade binder. It was just like, yeah, post on eBay. Like, get rid of these.
So, bam, there's our first sort of way to sell a card. So we've mentioned trade binders. It's a trading card game. Everybody should understand some things about trading, and maybe we'll reach deeper into that later. But eBay is a pretty good way to sell some cards.
Yeah. I think if you're willing to take more of a risk, then eBay's the way to go, because there's obviously safer places that you can sell a card or that you can get rid of a card. How
much of the value do you give up for that safety?
Exactly. Like, you could always go onto a buy list. Like, what's the site that you go on for buy lists? Do you have any particular one that you
so out? I've sold to the TCG Player store buy list a few times, because they will, what's the term that I'm looking for? Basically, they'll take every vendor that sells on TCG Player's buy list. And so if I sell 12 copies to them, they'll say, okay, well, actually Channel Fireball wants 5, and Timmy's Card Shop from Missouri wants 3. And so, they take a cut. But in those instances, when I sell to a buy list like that, I'm almost always trying to do it in credit so that I can get something else.
Yeah. You like reinvest it. Like,
exactly. And so
it's like the tax break you get from buying property and then reselling it.
But when you know that you're going to get a better deal because you're getting store credit, it sort of takes some of the pain away, because what you're almost never going to do, except for something like eBay or operating your own TCG Player store, is you're not going to get retail price for your cards. A lot of less experienced Magic players are very much in the habit of trading cards at market value or retail value.
Right.
They say, okay, what store, what vendor do you use for your pricing? We'll compare our trade values based on these retail values.
Absolutely. That's actually a really good point. Like, bringing up in ways to get rid of your cards, trading versus selling them for cash. Like, cash, you can almost always expect to get less than what is the listed price of your card. But
Absolutely.
when you're trading though, absolutely never settle for full value of what your card's worth.
Never settle for less.
Yeah, like never settle for less than full value. Like you
don't settle for full value.
Don't settle.
Get more.
That's right. That's what I was trying to say.
That was what your inner spirit was thinking.
No, but like, I mean, unless, of course, we're talking like penny cards over here, like 50 cents to a buck. Like, obviously, you might throw that, as a throw in or something. But if you're dealing with like a player that really wants or needs a card that that they've picked out of your trade binder, like, don't let them dicker you down. Like, they picked it out, man. Like, and yeah, if you want to pay me cash for it, we'll let it go for a little less. But like, if I'm trading it for other cards, there's absolutely no way, based on condition, that you should undervalue it. Like, that's kind of what it's there for.
I think the core takeaway from that is have reasonable expectations for what you will get for a card, depending on how you sell it. So if you sell it on a buy list, you're going to lose a third because that company or more wants to resell it for a third more or twice as much as they're paying for it.
Well, Magic is just as competitive, I think, in the selling market as it is as a playable game. Like, you have, for every card you have out there, just about, you have 5 or 6 big vendors that are trying to get rid of it. And, for all of these, each vendor that you have that's a big name, you have hundreds of players, that go on their own personal eBay accounts and are also trying to get rid of them. So it's like the market is yours when it comes to spending cash on that stuff. But what you'll see with that in that sort of competition is you can really price check at different places. And, even if, you list your card at like a penny less than someone else on eBay, if you're sorting your results, it'll pop up higher in the results. You know what I mean? Yep. So
and if you value the liquidity over the total value, which is to say, I don't mind going $1 less than the next guy because I just want this to sell today so that the money's in my PayPal account tomorrow, then you can undercut somebody, and that process leads to a supply and demand curves, which we won't get into, but
exactly. And like informed buyers too,
yeah.
You know what I mean, that are actually looking at other prices of cards.
So one of the other things to consider with the difference between selling, say, buy yourself on your eBay account versus selling to a buy list, you pay eBay a cut. So there is a loss there. Mm-hmm. You pack that card or package of cards and mail them. Excuse me, you may, I know when I sell on eBay, and in most things in life, I value my time higher than most dollar estimates. So when eBay says, hey, you can just print a shipping label for this, we'll even give you a discount. eBay, shipping, tape that thing on a manila envelope that I kept from the last order that I received from TCG Player.
Yeah.
Little penny pinching tip. Save all your top loaders. If you're a Magic card that orders Magic player that orders cards, and those cards come to you in top loaders,
if you plan on selling them, keep your top loaders, man.
You don't want to have to buy top loaders to ship out cards. That's just stupid.
Inconvenient cost right there. But yeah.
But those are costs that are associated with that sale. If you're selling to something like a TCG player buy list, you might be selling them a stack or even a fat pack full of cards, and you're going to ship that whole chunk. Yeah, you're still paying for shipping, and you're taking less of a cut, but you don't have to pack every one of those cards and ship every one of those cards to a different person. So if you're trying to unload volume, the buy list saves you time.
Oh yeah,
and shipping costs, because if you ship one card to 100 people at $3 a piece with tracking, that's $300 in shipping. Or you send this one box to TCG Player, and you could say retail it, that's a $600 box, and you're only getting $300 for it, but you just saved $300 in shipping them out to 8,900 eBay dorks.
Yeah. Dude, another piece of advice too is like if you're a seller that you either sell on eBay or Amazon or wherever, if you're selling cards for yourself basically, always pay for that shipping label that Brad was talking about. If the value of your card that you're selling is like over 10-15 bucks, always pay for that shipping label. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with that, man. Have you ever been like screwed on that where like you sell a card that is worth like $20 or more and then the seller's like,
I didn't get it.
I didn't get it. Did you send this card? And they're always like overly nice because they know you're just fucked. Like eBay's gonna eBay's gonna side with them because you can't prove that you sent it to them. They're just like, I don't know. Maybe I lost it somewhere. I don't know. But like they're always just like over the top, but you can't prove that you sent it. So like printing that shipping label actually just automatically attaches a tracking number to the order, and at any given point, you can at least prove that you sent this person something.
Yeah, that the post office will say, "Yep, we got a thing. We moved it from here to there. We're saying it got delivered." Most of the time, TCG Player will do this. eBay will do this if you sell through TCG Player. They're going to try and err on the part of the buyer because, the seller's taking a risk. They might make some money, but if eBay loses their buyer confidence, nobody sells anything.
Exactly. It makes sense. If no one wants to buy on your site, then your sellers don't make money. You don't make money. Like, so you're right. They're just always going to err on the side of the buyer.
All right. What about, we're talking about like dollar cards, $5 cards, $15 cards, $50 cards, $100 cards, $5,000 cards? Do we treat them differently?
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. Like if we're talking about the shipping label, for example, if I ever ship out like 3 or 4 cards and the total value was like $6 to $8, I don't waste the $3 to $4 on a shipping label and tracking information. I just stick a stamp on an envelope, throw it in the mail, and rely on the goodness of humanity that this person won't say like that they didn't get it. And if they do, it's like it's one of those things where you shouldn't be so busted up about like $6 where you're like, damn it, that's gonna break the bank. Even if you paid for that shipping label and then they're just like, oh, I got it, but I need to return it. Like, it costs you so much. You have to pay the shipping as a seller to ship that back. So it's like at some point it's just not worth it. You know what I mean? It's like lower value cards, but as the card price goes up though, man, like the potential payoff and savings there is well worth the $3 or $4. Like I sold a Eureka last year for like $400, and you definitely pay for the shipping information there because it works just the same as like as a $2 card. If they say they didn't get it, like, and you can't prove that you sent it, they get all of their money back. Like, it's almost like you gave it away. You know what I mean? Yep. Oh yeah.
What if you were selling power? Would you send that through the mail?
God, dude, that's a really good question. I've never sold power before. Interesting fact. To be completely honest though, dude, I felt so weird even packaging up my Lotus and sending it in the mail just to go to someone that wasn't buying it, but that was checking it out. Like, I was so sketched out. Like, this even got mentioned. Like, I sent it registered mail, which means basically like they don't ever put it through any machines. It's all hand, like it's all basically, handled by hand all the way there.
Lovingly caressed all the way to
lovingly
Rudy.
Caressed and scanned in by hand all the way there. So it takes like 4 times as long to get anywhere.
But I did. I don't know if you noticed, but I did put the link to that authentication video in the comments section on our last video on YouTube.
Yes, absolutely. It's there. So if you guys want to check that out, I'm referring to the video where Rudy authenticated my Lotus. Like, even that, just packing it up in the mail felt so weird. But, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about selling power, though, and, like, selling it on eBay. There was a couple of times where I had posted my Lotus online for, at the time, like, the price of mint condition, even though it's not quite mint. Like, I just posted it up there because I'm like, if it sells, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? I just got full price out of it. Like, it didn't sell, but at the same time, uh, that's because there's less people that are out there playing Magic that have like $10,000 to be like, yeah, I'm just gonna drop that on a card, or really anything that has to do with a hobby. You know what I mean?
And that's one of the reasons why I like this range where I'm at in the sort of nickel stocks, which is if I'm gonna sell a card on eBay, it's probably gonna be a $20 plus card, between 20 and 100. If it's worth more than 100, I'm actually more likely to try and sell it on a Facebook user group, like a buy, sell, swap, trade site on Facebook, where
What's the name of that group, by the way?
there's a bunch of different ones. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought we were in the coolest one, man. I see some of my friends from down in Georgia that are in that group.
Oh,
Like,
that's a pretty big one.
It's huge.
Well, do you mean the roll group or?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a sort of a different thing. But there are other Facebook, like there are Facebook groups for everything. So if you're into alters, you can find a group for that. If you're into miscuts, misprints, that sort of thing, there are groups for that. There are groups on Facebook for buying and selling entire decks. So, but I would probably want to have a more personal transaction for me for something cards over $100. Now, granted, I don't know if I have. I mean, I have a few cards worth more than $100, but they're cards I play.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't have. I'm not sitting on a stack of $100 cards that are just investments. But how I would go about that, the $1, $5 cards under $20, I like to put in my trade binder. Trade those into cards maybe that are worth more than $20. Because then I'll sell one card on eBay for $25 instead of trying to sell $21 cards anywhere else.
Yeah. I would have to say if I had to like put a number to it, I would say my value card where it's like you really start to second guess like the best way to sell it would probably be something like in the $400 to $500 or higher range. Like, cause I've bought cards for like, $100, $200 online, and didn't really feel too bad about it. And like, I figure if someone's buying that card from me and it's not really rocking them that bad, like, yeah, it's an expensive card, but if you do, tracking information, all of this stuff, like it should go pretty smooth. And like, just us being us, like, we're not the player that's breaking the bank playing Magic. Like, if I lose $100 in some, act of God where something goes terribly wrong, I'm not going to feel absolutely, I'm going to feel bad, but I'm not going to feel absolutely horrible, life ruining over it. But like, if you sell like $1,000 card online and something goes wrong, like it's just, that's kind of the risk that you take. That's where you might want to ask yourself, like, is it better to send it to like a buy list, and take like $600 for it, as opposed to being able to sell it for $1,000. But you're kind of taking that liquidity trade there where you're like, okay, this is safer. I'm gonna get my 600 from this, from this vendor, from this site.
It's
like
all reliable.
Yeah.
The other thing may be a timing thing. If you're trying to sell that $800,000 card, it could take you a month to find the Magic player that has the liquidity
right
to do that. Not a lot of players do that maybe don't already have what they're looking for. You have to find the right buyer at the right time to get that full price. Where if you go to a TCG player or Magic Card Market, MKM, something like that, you can buy list it with almost no problem at any time. The time it takes them to receive it and shipping and verify the authenticity and condition, and bam, you've got a deposit.
This has really made me think of just talking about this stuff. So I've never sold power, but it's made me think about all the times that I've bought power or acquired power and how I did it. You know what I mean? Which is really interesting because it's very rarely ever been online. Like I bought the Lotus for $1,000 in person from somebody. I bought I traded for the Mox Ruby that I have. It's all beat to shit, but like I traded other cards for it. You know what I mean? I think there was one card that I bought online, a Piece of Power, which, oh man, it makes me sick to think about it, but it was so long ago that I'm just like, I don't miss the money at this point. Like many, many years ago, I want to say 10 years ago, I bought a Beta Mox Emerald for like $250, and I felt pretty good about it. Probably 4 years ago, three years ago, I put it on eBay, and I put like a price tag of like $500 to $600 on it. I can't remember, somewhere in that range, because I was just like, yeah, it's gonna fold right in the middle of it. I was like, it's not in good condition. But dude, I was kind of lucky. Someone like messaged me and said, I think your card is fake. And I was like,
Oh,
you're shitting me. And I was, so I obviously messaged him back, and I was just like, hey, I'm very interested in what you said. Like, can you tell me why you think it's fake? Like, I don't want to sell something fake on here. Like, and I had people offering me like $200 for it, $300 for it. And like, this guy's like, yeah, take a look at your zeroing on your card. And he's like, then do yourself a favor and go look at like some international versions and the real beta Mox Emerald version. And sure as shit, dude, I went on there and looked, and the zero was fucked up. Like it was the international like rebacked version of it. And I was like, damn it, dude. So yeah, the one time that I bought online, like I got screwed with it. But yeah, so it's weird because all of what we're talking about is just started making me think about how I got power and some of the things that went wrong. But then again, I mean, I've bought really, big reserve list cards online before, and they're fine. Like Time Vault, I bought that for $50, and now it's worth, I don't know. I haven't checked in a while because it's just one of those cards you kind of want to hold on to. It was like you got it at the time you really liked playing the game, like with all of these old cards, and you didn't care the format, you didn't care. I got it at that time, so it has like the sentimental value, but I think it's up around $1,000 now, like somewhere between 800 and $1,000 at least.
well, and so for me, that's when I start to think I'm gonna go to a GP. I'm gonna go to an in-person vendor to buy that $500 card, or maybe sell that $500 card. So you, at a GP, especially if you're talking about cards that are played in competitive formats and in Commander, the buy list at GPs can often be a little bit more favorable even than what you would get online. You see the card in hand, vice versa. You don't have to. Sometimes when you mail things in on a buy list, they might look at something you said it was lightly played, and they go, no, we're going to call this HP. And you thought you were getting, $8 for the card, and really you're going to get $5 for the card.
Yeah.
And when that happens on 100 cards, you just lost a bunch of money.
Exactly.
When I went to foil out Modern Humans, a buddy of ours, a mutual friend of ours that I trust greatly, took a whole stack of modern playable cards and EDH cards that I had that I wasn't playing, and I said, just take this down to the SCG and see what they'll give you in store credit. And it was not.
And they really break it down in there too.
It was one of these type boxes.
Yeah.
And he came back and said, I get you $500 in store credit.
Shit.
I got basically everything I needed except for the last 3 Cavernous Souls. And so I bring all this up because when I wanted those last 3 Cavern of Souls, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to get them, trading into foil Cavernous Souls that were the newer Blue Spirit background locally, probably not going to happen.
Yeah. But even, the cool thing about taking them to vendors like that, especially if you have a whole stack of cards, is they even take, like, if you go to Star City Games, they're wicked cool, man. They even take, like, the $1, $2 cards.
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to value them at $1 or $2 when they put them on the table and figure out what they could give you in store credit. But you might get, like, 75 cents to $1 off from a $2 card.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And that's having that expectation of what you should really expect. You're not going to get retail value unless you sell the card yourself.
And you didn't have to pay shipping to, like, you know, have them sent out to these people for them to give you that much. Like, it's just right there. It's pretty convenient for you. Another thing about going to a GP is even if you don't get or you don't like your offer from like Star City Games on your card or something like that, there is a ton of players that are willing to trade or pay for your card right there. And
we are not endorsing the sale of a Magic card at Magic Fest.
no, but like you have interest there. Like you can definitely get rid of it. Like, you know, like for example, how good would you feel about just straight buying a Black Lotus off someone if you knew nothing about it off the street?
Yeah.
Right?
Nope.
Like, you don't know how to authenticate it or whatnot. How would you feel if that same person, you saw him at a GP, and Star City Games was like, we'll give you $5,000 for this Lotus. And they're like, no. If you really wanted a Lotus, you might be approaching that person to be like, hey, I see you're trying to get rid of your Lotus. And now you feel better about it because you just saw Star City Games give an offer of $5,000 for it. And you might by implication say, this is real. Like, you know, these people who know more than I do are vetting this card. So that might be a way that when you think about those really high value cards is just going to GPs and like getting offers on them, getting vendors' opinions, you know, seeing what they'll offer you. You could either sell it right there, but more importantly, you'll know that it's sort of authenticated.
I think a lot of vendors would just do that. You know, walk up to a booth and be like, I don't know if I'm interested in selling it, but I have this Lotus, and you know, I wouldn't mind having your opinion just to make sure I didn't get screwed. Do you think this is a legit Lotus? You could probably get an informed opinion for free.
Oh yeah. And I mean, what vendor doesn't want a card like that in their store? Like, you know what I mean? They would probably genuinely evaluate it and try to make you like a decent offer, even if you weren't looking to, you know, hey, I know you might not be looking to sell it, but we'd give you this for it if you wanted to, you know?
So sort of going back through what we talked about, think about what kind of player you are, what it is that you want out of the game. Do you want to have a massive Magic collection, or do you just want to have the cards that you play for the decks that you play? When you're thinking about selling cards, think about what the audience is for that card. Is it a high dollar value card? Think about what you want to get out of that card. Do you need to get every dollar out of that card? Or did you pay 50 cents for it and now it's worth over $30 and you can sell them for $28 and undercut the rest of the market and still make a 1,000,000% profit, you bastard.
Sometimes you get lucky in this game, you know. But that's a great segue into, you know, some other segments that we had here. You know what we need? We need a friggin' sound effect on one of these. You don't tell me you have it.
That might not have been the right sound effect.
Well, that wasn't the one I was expecting. We need like a whiplash, like a snappy. If I tell her, you should have done that during my dad joke in the beginning. I don't know why you didn't have that right on deck.
I'm not prepared for the dad joke. That came out of left field.
Although that could be something in the future. You just awkwardly stare at me. You heard it here first. The bad joke sound right there. But yeah, we need something to segue into these segments right here. Some sort of whiplash. I'm going to do it with my mouth right now. Snap this shit up.
Good job.
That's right. That's right. People are cheering right now because we're telling you to snap these cards up. As you, as our loyal listeners may know, Snap This Shit Up is the segment where we talk about card prices or cards that are at a price right now that is probably worth picking up, just based on a lot of things. Either they're really not going to, get much lower than that, or they have such a potential of being higher that like you might want to jump on them right now. So Brad had a great suggestion that I definitely took you up on this week. What was that?
So I sort of gave a little hint to this at the beginning of the episode. A couple of years ago, people started talking about how awful green was. We had the battle for the return to battle for whatevers, and green was awful and green was unplayable, and then Wizards focused on green, and now Simic is overly powerful. People are complaining about white. Man, I think we're going to see some powerful white cards. And recently, they printed a very powerful 3-mana white card in Heliod Sudden Crowned.
Great card.
Great card. I'm gonna bring it up just because there is a lot of text on it, and I don't want to.
Yeah,
I've done this earlier.
One of the new gods, though. I'm sure a lot of our listeners already know what we're talking about, though.
They really do.
Yeah, Heliod Sun Crowned. Just a beautiful looking card too. It's got that, like, even the regular version of it has that crown art at the top of it.
Yeah.
God, it's so beautiful, dude.
So, legendary enchantment creature god, indestructible. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, Heliod isn't a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. That can also include Heliod, even when he's not a creature.
Absolutely.
Plus, the last ability on here is to pay 1 and a white. Another target creature gains lifelink until end of turn. It is a 5/5 for 3, can be found with collected company.
It's so stupid, man.
Is being played in Standard. Is being played in Pioneer. Is being played in Modern. And certainly eventually can be played in a white commander deck. Any commander deck that has either life gain synergies or +1/+1 counter synergies, it's a no-brainer. Now, this card, depending on where you look, is between $15 and $20 now to snap this up.
Yep.
It's a mythic. It's an imprint set. There are a few different versions of it. There is the alt art. There's the full frame version. I think if you can get the alt arts or the full art version at a reasonable trade price, it's going to be a great investment, because once this card spikes a Modern or Pioneer tournament, there's a lot of evidence in prior Standard formats for a Standard mythic to hit $40 or more.
Oh yeah, we've seen it with Teferi, the first Teferi. What was he? Teferi, the 5-drop.
Time Raveler? No.
Nope, that's 3.
Hero.
Yes, Hero of Dominaria. Like, we saw that. He went up to just about $60 in Standard.
How much was 4-drop Gideon in Standard?
I don't know.
$40-$50.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Jesus, dude.
And so now you're talking about a 3-mana 5/5 that you can collected company into, that has combos with Walking Ballista and one of your picks. This card may go down. It's being opened right now, and a lot of Theros Beyond Death is being opened. I'm not saying that this is the bottom of this price, but I'm saying this ain't the top of it.
Sure as hell ain't the top, man. Like, it's a good point too about a standard in-print mythic. And comparing it to Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. The reason why that card, a good reason why it went up so much is not only was it used so much in Standard at the time, but it had seen play in every other format. It had seen play in Modern, it's seen play in Legacy, in Vintage, and whenever that happens, whenever you see those, it's like we were talking about a few podcasts ago, whenever you see these standard in-print cards that are hitting all of these formats, or a good number of formats, it means they're just generally a very good value card, Yeah. And Heliod definitely has that potential. I'm not sure if we've seen him in a Legacy deck yet, have we?
I haven't yet, but I don't know that it would take very long. I'm looking, I like using MTG Goldfish. Looking at their recent decks, 45 mono white devotion decks in Pioneer running Heliod.
That's ridiculous.
17 white devotion company decks, standard mono white life gain, Pioneer Kethis combo, modern Abzan Heliod company, Heliod combo, green white hardened scales in Pioneer. Now that's interesting.
Yeah. Let's say this Heliod Walking Ballista combo gets out of control in Pioneer. Which of those cards are they banning?
Oh, it's so hard to say. I don't want to answer that. I don't want to answer that because I don't want either of them to be banned. I love Walking Ballista.
It's really cool, man.
Walking Ballista enables so many combos.
That's the thing.
It would probably end up being Ballista.
Yeah.
It's a colorless card that can go in any deck.
Mana sink, you got infinite mana, you can do something. You can kill your opponent.
If they banned hardened scales, if they banned Walking Ballista, though, what could we do with our Heliod?
Dude, we could do a lot, man. In fact, one of my picks for Snap This Shit Up is a card that I think some people forgot about. And I say some, not everybody, but some people forgot about when Heliod was printed because of all the uproar with Heliod and Walking Ballista. And that card is Spike Feeder. I think that right now is a pretty good pickup. It was recently, I say recently, but not too recently, reprinted in a Commander deck. This was, I don't know, probably 5 years ago or so, but hasn't been reprinted since. And it's always hovered around like $1.50. But it's just such a cool card to have. The foil version of this is over $13. So whenever you have a dollar card, and the foil version of it is ridiculously more expensive than the regular price card. It's just like what we talked about before. You probably want to start looking at that card because it will likely go up in price. And the reason I brought it on board with Heliod here is, like I said, some people overlooked it. Not a lot, not everybody, but there's an infinite combo with Spike Feeder and Heliod. You don't
need anything else. You don't need any.
You don't need mana. You don't need anything else.
Collected company into both of them.
Yep, and you gain infinite life. Like that's just how it is. Spike Feeder is a 0/0 creature for 2 green and a colorless, 3 mana. Comes into play with 2 1/1 counters. I'm just gonna skip reading the first ability because no one uses it. But the second ability is you can remove a 1/1 counter from Spike Feeder and gain 2 life. So you can kind of see how that works with Heliod. You just remove the 1/1 counter, you gain 2 life. Heliod triggers and says, hey, you gained life. Put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control. Oh, guess which one I'm going to pick? I'm going to put it right on Spike Feeder.
So, homeboy is having a field day.
Exactly. So it's like it's like kind of like a half Archangel of Thune combo with Heliod. And, just the fact that value can kind of be brought into Heliod as well is phenomenal to me. Like, just insane to think about.
I think without any planning on our part, we had like Captain Planet with my Heliod pick and your Spike Feeder pick. We have basically picked a deck.
Make sure to get these collected companies we're talking about here too.
Yeah, so that might also be worthwhile if they're not going to reprint that soon. But this is interesting because the Heliod is the newer card. It's, at least over $15, $15 roughly. Mm-hmm. You can get the Spike Feeder regular printings for under $1.
Mm-hmm. I would suggest if you're going to buy a version of Spike Feeder, the one that I would suggest is probably the taboo version that most players stray away from, but it's the Battle Royale version. And people probably stray away from it because it's got white borders. But the Battle Royale is that style of card I don't think will ever really be reprinted. Like the white border, it basically it's a reprint in and of itself, the Battle Royale set. And this was one of the first sets I ever bought as a Magic player, not going to lie, Battle Royale. One of the Spike Feeders that I've used in all of my decks has been the Spike Feeder that I cracked from Battle Royale back in the day, like when the set came out. But it's so cool because they take these reprints that had an original black border, and then they just reprint the exact symbol on that same card with a white border. Like it's really cool, man. Like I know it sounds weird because it's white bordered and people typically don't like white bordered cards, but go check out some of the things that have happened with some of the lands from Battle Royale. The white bordered like swamps that have like I think John Avon as the artist are like $15.
Well, and when you have an alternate printing that has the original set symbol, that has some cachet to it as well.
Exactly.
The new mystery booster packs that they're opening at GPs and will eventually be in stores. That's one of the things that they did there. They're reprinting these cards, but with the original set symbol.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
It really is.
Yep.
What else you got this week?
Well, as far as Snap This Shit Up, it kind of tailors off from what you had talked about with Heliod. I would suggest if you're going to get any Heliods or really any of the new printing cards that they've printed in alternate art. This is an amazing time to get them. Like if you're looking to naturally pick some of these cards up anyway, it blows my mind that some of these alternate art cards, they have I think they're called showcase cards.
Yep.
They are the exact same price as the regular one. That doesn't make any sense to me. You know, as a longtime student of the game, you know, seeing some sort of alternate rarer version of a card be the exact same price as the original. So when Brad had suggested to me earlier this week to pick up Heliods, I'm a very patient eBay buyer. I put in bids on auctions and all of this stuff. I won a couple of them for $15. I got a regular one for $15, and I got a showcase version for $15.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to try to hunt these showcase versions because they're clearly, in my mind, they're cooler. They're more rare for sure. You know, you have to pay more for the packs to crack them. So, you know, it's more rare. And if you're looking to pick up any of these cards, like in the newer set, the Theros Beyond Death,
Or Throne of Eldraine.
Yeah, or Throne of Eldraine. Yeah, they have the awesome fantasy art with those. Get those. Like, get those versions. They're exactly the same price just about these days, and well worth it. Like, you know, I actually cracked a couple of those Theros Beyond Death packs, you know, the special premium packs the other day, and I cracked a Heliod. And I was like, oh man, the regular one's worth like $20. This is going to be like $40. And I went and looked it up online, and it's like $20.
It won't be that way forever.
Oh, it definitely won't be. And it was the same thing with Thassa. You know, I began to check out some of the other gods. Thassa is being used in standard right now. It's about a $20 card regular, and the showcase version is $20. Like, it's just nuts to me. So I'm like, okay, there's absolutely no reason to buy the regular version.
It is interesting though, because, and we talked about this very briefly earlier, when you're talking about a premium card like that, and for a lot of folks, premium just means foil. But now if you're talking about a pack foil versus this showcase frame, or what they're calling the Constellation frame for Thassa, until a card has longevity in something beyond standard, I don't think people care that much about bling.
Right.
I think once a card, and so we already see Heliod being played in Modern and Pioneer. So that's a card that people will want to bling out. They'll, you know, a lot of Modern players foil their deck or look for special printings for their deck. Thassa is another one that may very well go that route, that we'll see play in Eternal formats. But I think, to your point, when the values are so similar, yes. But in the end, the market will decide which art it likes best.
Oh, for sure. And it's kind of like what we had talked about last week in your two economic terms that you brought up of, you know, substitutes and complements. When you have a card complementing another card, or, you know,
or as a substitute.
Yeah, or as a substitute, yes. It can naturally bring the price of both cards up. So, yep. Like, obviously, Heliod Suncrown is a perfect substitute for Heliod Suncrown. So, like, if you have two different versions of it, and you just have these, you know, standard players that are much like the first type of player we were talking about in the podcast, they don't necessarily care about the value of the cards. They're just like, yeah, I'll buy the cheaper one. You're going to see the prices kind of even out because they don't care what version they got. So that's kind of a great point you brought up. But I would say prey on that right now. You know what I mean? If they're evening out in price, like, it's a pretty good sign to pick up like these alternate arts of these cards that you're likely either going to pick up anyway or that you're specking on. You know, if you got them in your mind and you want to get them, get those alternate art versions. So yeah, that's about all I had for snap this shit up.
I think that's a great episode. I really appreciated the.
Well, hold up though, we can't do a sell your cards episode without saying what cards we think you should sell right now, with at least one suggestion.
What do you got?
All right, man. You guys want to hear it? It's the card we've been talking about since the beginning of the podcast.
Heliod.
Sell your Heliod. No. It's the card that I was talking about that I bought at 50 cents that's now worth like $35. You know, this was a 50-cent card at one point. It's not on the reserve list. It's $35, and most people only want one copy of it for a commander deck. Like, that card is tainted packed. I spec'd on it when it was 50 cents, and I bought 12 of them. I've traded some away when it was like 15.
I thought you were telling me you had an impacted taint.
I could, and if I did, I would sell that for whatever it's worth, probably less. But Tainted Pact.
Sorry. Continue.
Hold on, wait, where is it? Is that nope? We gotta get used to these damn sound effects. But yeah, Tainted Pact, man. If you have any and you either don't use it or you have extras, I would highly suggest selling them. I sold them on eBay for, doing some of the same tricks that we talked about, just slightly undercutting other sellers, just because I know I paid 50 cents for them. I listed them at $28 and, which is significantly under market value. And people have just been scooping them up from me. So, like, it makes you feel pretty good about, like, yeah, I spent 50 cents on that card. Like, I feel pretty good about selling all of these. And that's just basically straight profit when you spec on a 50-cent card like that. So
Right. You don't feel bad about going in on a couple of my Heliod picks when you're
exactly
selling 50-cent cards for $28.
Exactly.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming over again, doing this podcast every week. It's a blast.
Rain, snow, shine, or whatever. We'll be here. Thank you guys for joining us. Stepping it up.
I'm glad I just accidentally hit record when you said that. I'm going to cut this in now.